Welcome to the Abundant Accountant Podcast. This is where accounting professionals just like you learn all the ways to grow their firm, sharpen their skills, and have consistent increasing sales. I cover topics such as detaching from the emotional side of the sale, having paradigm shifts in the most important part of your business, which is the nucleus of your accounting firm, sales, and how to see an objection really as an asset and stop giving away your time for free for those that don't deserve it, so you can actually get paid your value and your worth and grow your top line revenue. You'll learn tips, sales strategies, as well as hear from personal interviews from successful accounting professionals. This podcast will show you exactly the blueprint on how to create the firm and life of your dreams full of abundance. Welcome to the Abundant Accountant Podcast. It is an honor to be here with you again today, and we have a very special guest. Today's special guest is actually a client, completed the 8-week sales mastery training, also in the ongoing training that she's in. She is an accountant out of Cincinnati, so out there in the Midwest. Her business is called DL Money Matters, and she is actually this year celebrating her 10-year anniversary in business. She's had over 30 years of hands-on accounting experience. She focuses with small to mid-sized businesses, and she also works with elderly with managing their finances and the day-to-day, overseeing their financial matters and personal care. And she is really motivated for both business and personal, quote, money matters. But before we welcome our special guest, if you are feeling a little out of control with your whole front-end process once you get a lead or a referral, and you really are just kind of winging it, or as Diana shares it, shooting from the hip, then, hey, maybe it's time we should have a phone call. And, why wait for the right time from really what's holding you back in your firm and creating the dream? So if you have had challenges with asking for higher fees, or maybe you're terrified of raising your rates to your existing clients, or maybe you are just completely winging it, you don't have a step-by-step process on how to enroll clients, then if you are someone who wants to talk to me about getting the fees that you want with a proven system, so you never have to feel like you have too much on your plate and not enough revenue, then I invite you to go to theabundantcall.com and book your call with me. I will actually talk to you for a good 45 minutes or an hour, and we'll talk about where your accounting business is at now, where you'd like it to be. And if I feel you're a good fit, we'll talk about the 8-week training that our special guest, Diana, is going to talk about. But Diana's increased her revenue in her firm, monthly reoccurring, by $6,500 per month. Before we begin, let's welcome Diana to the show. Welcome, Diana, to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here with us today on the Abundant Accountant Podcast and our case study series. So our case study series are with clients who I've worked with and amazing accounting professionals like Diana who, put in the hard work, but also took the leap of faith, even though it was probably scary to really make a change because sometimes it's not easy. So before we dive in, Diana, into our conversation today, could you share with everyone, where your firm's at, how long you've been doing this, were you in corporate before, how long you've been on your own, etc.?
Well, I am celebrating my 10th year anniversary in 2021.
Nice.
So I have been climbing this mountain for 10 years. I'm a native of Cincinnati. I've had over 30 years of hands-on accounting experience. I'm a degreed accountant, all that kind of good stuff. I've worked with small to medium-sized service organizations over the years. And really what happened in my situation, my mother was aging, and we all are facing that at some point in time. And she needed help with overseeing her finances. And it dawned on me, it's like, she's just one of many. And that really got my wheels a turning for about a year. And I decided, I'm going to take a leap of faith. And everyone thought I was crazy because that was at the end of 2010. We had just really come out of a horrible horrible financial time.
Yeah.
And that was my original focus, to work with seniors and their families to really just help them manage the day-to-day finances. But in the process of me building that client base, I was receiving referrals for small business owners who were struggling to manage and grow their business, leaving the accounting piece to the bottom of the stack. They were
Wow.
just in the trenches all the time and waiting till tax time to find out, are they making money, losing money, how much do they owe Uncle Sam? And soon I kind of realized, this is a good thing to have two different client streams, two different revenue streams coming in, because they're complementary, but they're different.
Yeah.
And I can use my skills for both.
No, that's
that's
wonderful.
that's kind of how it happened. And right now it's probably 30% of my business is what we call daily money management, or working with seniors and family members, and 70% small business. So it's a good niche I kind of fell into.
Yeah, no, it is great. And I think, like you shared, and for everyone listening, any accounting professional knows that this is the last thing on a business owner's mind. Typically, when they're starting their business, they have their business. And then, like you said, it's the bottom of their stack. And what do they do when it comes time to pay taxes, or even know where their business is at on a monthly basis, just like your elderly clientele, as far as managing their day-to-day finances. So kudos to you, and happy 10-year anniversary to you.
I know.
All right. Well, I'm sure everyone's listening going, well, why is Diana here as a case study, Michelle? And that is a great question if you're thinking about that. So Diana and I actually met, it was almost maybe 9 months to a year ago. I don't know the exact date. And she felt, or maybe you can share, Diana, when we first spoke, I heard you felt your business was a sinking ship. You've been doing this 10 years the same way, but it wasn't going the way you truly wanted it to go. Can you share with everyone where you were at and what you were struggling with, about a year ago?
Well, we were in the midst of the pandemic.
Yeah.
So the first half of the year was scary. In the middle of it, I lost someone, an employee, not a person, who went on and had another opportunity. So there was one struggle, having to try to get someone new started. Second was just, I had clients that, because of the pandemic, of what their companies did, they weren't making any money. So that meant I wasn't making any money, because there was no services I was providing to them. And I thought, where am I ever going to find more clients? Everyone is struggling. And I was pretty much so at my wits' end, like, what am I doing? Why did I ever decide to leave a job?
Yeah, because sometimes I think we make more money in a job, or I don't have to deal with the stress or the fluctuation. And I think a lot of people during the pandemic, even who had a job, realized that that wasn't even that secure, and that anytime you can get laid off, fired. So many companies downsized, and it can really be a struggle no matter if you have your own business or if you're in a job. And I think the scary part, Diana, is the unknown. It's like, well, who's going to quit tomorrow, right? Your person in your firm, maybe you have an assistant, maybe you have an admin. It's like every day something can go sideways. And that's the terrifying thing to think about, and being in that unknown and not knowing how you're going to even fix it or solve it.
Well, and then we had the whole working from home thing. So, because it was so scary, and as accountants, we were essential workers. So I had to get that set up. So I had some staff working from home. I had to get the IT piece set up. And that was like another stress ball to have to go through that piece too. So it was just one thing after another in 2020.
Yeah.
So I think when I talked with, darn it, who did I talk to? I forget her name.
It was either Molly or Denise or me.
I think it was Molly.
Yep.
And I was at the very bottom of the bottom, just like, I'm going to lose this. And she convinced me to give this a try. And at the end of the day, I think going through the sales mastery training course, more than anything else, it gave me the confidence I needed and that I had when I started my firm.
Yeah.
And the one thing I didn't really have was tools to sell because I'm just an accountant. I just know how to
Debits,
I know how to
credits.
count beans, and
Yeah.
I'm good at it, really good. But my talking in accountant terms to a business owner was almost Greek, and
Yeah.
I was blessed to have who I had, and I was able to sell. But this class really gave me the sales tools I didn't know existed. Has made a big difference, and not only help me with my sales initiatives, but also client retention. And clients, say, "Gosh, you cost a lot of money, and how do I define that worth to them? How can I believe my worth in that whole process?"
Well, and you no longer, like you shared earlier, are shooting from the hip. And I think when we don't shoot from the hip and you have a sales process you can follow, then you're no longer a sinking ship. It shifted for you. You had the confidence to even share with your current clients your value and your worth and, all of those things that we know we have inside. But sometimes we're like, you know what? This is just too overwhelming. This is just too much. Doing the technical stuff and getting my IT set up at home and this whole working remote. This is not easy. It's not for the birds. And now that you have a process that you depend on, I know you shared that with me before, and that you trust because you created it with some guidance, of course.
With lots of guidance.
So what do you think was the most challenging or difficult thing when you took the leap of faith? You said Molly convinced you. I think she just showed you a new a way of thinking.
Others trying to do a similar thing, but your way sounded much better.
Well, let's talk about that. We don't need to name any names, but I'm sure a lot of people here listening have been approached by other programs, help, coaches, who knows, right? What do you think was the biggest difference for why you took the leap of faith with us and me and having me guide you even still to this day? And it's just an honor to work with you because you implement everything and try it, even though it could be really uncomfortable compared to other things that were out there or other help or other trainings.
I think the big thing was your focus was for accountants. And because you really have a good feel for who we are as accountants and what our processes are, and a lot of times what our fear is and what our shortcomings are. And I didn't feel that way. The other firm folks selling, I didn't feel that same sense of expertise and commitment.
Yep. And you know what's interesting, and one of the things we talk about in the 8-week sales mastery training is who do you want to work with? And when you become an expert in a certain area, because I only work with accountants, I get asked all the time, Diana, I'm a financial advisor. I'm like, nope, sorry. That is not an accountant. It's very different. And once we actually pick, so for you, you're working with the elders and you're working with small business owners. That's pretty specific. And the more specific you make it, the more of an expert you can become. I can sell monthly bookkeeping. I can sell accounting services. I can sell a tax plan. I can sell pretty much any of this stuff. And I think how you shared earlier was really beautiful because you said, I am not speaking Greek to my clients anymore. And I think that's a huge shift in some of the success that you've seen.
And I think the other thing is just the whole pain point thing. And I think I probably got my thought from what I was going through. What was my pain points as a small business owner? And I'm thinking my pain points are really not a whole lot different than other small businesses. And I really kind of spoke from my heart as I started talking to other people about their pain points. And I really could relate. And I think that made a huge difference. And it just really developed trust as I met with prospects.
Yep. And when we develop trust and we, like you said, spoke from the heart and can connect, that's what we call empathy. And one of my favorite books is Chris Voss's book, Never Split the Difference. And he's been here on the Abundant Accountant podcast. And That's all he teaches is empathy. And when we can empathize with our prospects sitting in front of us, they feel that. And that's not accounting speak, right? We're not speaking Greek. We're not speaking debits and credits, because people like me, I'm not an accountant. I don't get any of that language. You might as well be speaking Japanese to me, Diana. Japanese is where it pretty much sounds like. So
well, and I read Chris's book too after you made the recommendation. It really helped.
It does. And I mean, I've listened to it 2 times, and I still and just little pieces. And he's got a masterclass on that masterclass thing on TV. That's great too. Or not on TV, on your app. It's an app. So highly recommend it. All right, let's go back, Diana, into what the biggest challenge was throughout the 8-week sales mastery training. So let's say someone listening, they're going to schedule a call, which if you want to book one, you can, abundantcall.com. We chat, right? And they take the leap of faith, they jump in. What do you think was the biggest challenge or the biggest struggle doing the work? Because some people always say, well, Michelle, you've got a bunch of testimonials, but like, what about the hard stuff? I'm like, well, it's all hard. But what about from your point of view?
I think there was just a lot of soul searching and a lot of struggle initially with some of the really basic questions, like, why am I doing what am I doing? Who am I? Who do I want to serve? It started out with those kind of soul searching processes.
Yeah.
And then the work was hard. I mean, and you had to do the work. You couldn't, my weekends were spent doing a lot of homework.
Or you would get an email from me.
Oh yeah. They just you get an email. Yeah. Because something in my Google Docs is like, no, you got to fix that. But, but I learned.
Yeah.
I learned from it.
Yeah.
And it's a process. And actually going back through the notes and reviewing it and looking through my sales binder, as well as being in their continuing sales mastery course, has been a very material decision for me to make, to stay with that. Because listening to it again, you go, aha, now I get it. Because sometimes some of the concepts were so foreign to me as an accountant, not in sales. Yeah. I didn't connect the dots all the time the first time, but this second time around, working with you has been very helpful.
Oh, that's lovely. So, okay, it's not really salesy and all that. So tell us, what do you feel and how do you feel about sales now in your firm as the firm owner?
I love doing sales. If I could just do sales and have someone else do the onboarding and all the other hard work, that other heavy lifting that has to happen, I love it.
That's fantastic. What'd you think of sales a year ago?
No, I don't want to. That puts me out of my comfort zone. And I think that's probably the biggest kudos of all for me, is the sales mastery course just pushed me out of my comfort zone. I was just usually paralyzed by fear. And at the end of the day, I was doing too much work and I wasn't charging enough for what I was doing. So I wasn't always that motivated. I was like, oh, that looks like a really hard one. Gosh, I don't want to have to go through it.
Yeah. And it was like you probably ended up doing tasks that would put you further away from having to talk to a prospect, even though the revenue in our businesses is what pays us, what pays our staff, and what has us not, feel like we have a sinking ship where we're going to have to close our business. So pushed out of your comfort zone. I hear that all the time. I think even Ross in your class, he said the same thing. It's totally normal. But now you love sales. So let's talk about, let's talk about some of your accomplishments. Let's hear those wins, the big milestones and the changes that you made. Because I know you've increased your monthly recurring revenue. I know you've increased your fees. I think people are paying you up front. So maybe some of the stats, if we were looking at the stats of a professional football, basketball game at the end, what are those stats for Diana?
Well, my monthly revenue has increased a little over 35%. That's been a great thing. Yeah. I've set up several people, and I was always hourly. And that was one thing, is like, Diana, don't be hourly. And I hate being hourly. I I don't want people to buy my hours. I want people to buy my expertise.
Yeah.
So I've set up probably a third of my clients so far on a monthly billing. I bill them the first of the month. On the first day of the month, the bill goes out. They're all set up ACH.
Nice.
It's lovely. My return or turnaround time on my accounts receivable is probably 15 days for the majority. Everyone always has a couple of laggers, and I'm still working on that piece because I did so many changes at one time. I'm kind of stepping into it.
Yeah. Small baby steps. We have to take baby steps, but you took gigantic steps. Like if you were a dinosaur, those are like dinosaur, I don't even know. What were those dinosaurs called back in the day? But you took dinosaur steps, and having monthly revenue increase 35%. Can you quantify that for the listeners? Like, what does that mean? Monthly reoccurring revenue has gone up X amount of dollars?
Probably about $6,500
a month.
A month.
Yeah, that's pretty big.
Yeah. And I'm a small firm. So, if you were a larger firm, increase it that way. But yeah.
Yeah, that's huge. I'm not a mathematician, but that's almost $80,000 a year.
Yes.
And that's extra money that goes to you.
Well, or it goes to investing in staff.
Yeah,
yep.
Staff, or eventually you can, invest in marketing. And I want to share that Diana did all this without new leads, without, spending money on marketing, right? This was all done from what was underneath your firm and underneath the roof. Once we could dust off the cobwebs and see what was going on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it was all my hard work to do it. So as a business owner,
it was
for everyone listening to this, it's kind of all up to us. We've got to make this happen. I was actually in a networking meeting a couple of weeks ago. And one of the people sitting next to me was also from a CPA firm, but he was a sales and marketing dude. I'm like, you don't have okay, that's me saying that because I'm a business owner, but I'm like, you don't have the same skin in the game. And you don't feel a lot of the stress and pressure of what has to happen to get a new client onboarded.
Yeah.
And are you really listening to what their needs are? Do you know what their pain points are? How are you going to solve those? And how are you going to lead them to obtaining a dream that they've always had?
I love your language.
I just
Diana.
don't feel like sales and marketing employees of a firm have that passion. Maybe they do, but I didn't feel that with him.
Yeah, well, and I always share, because a lot of people have contacted me, and I can't recall if you and I spoke about this, but typically it gets brought up. Michelle, I want to hire someone to do this part for me. I said, okay. But until you can do this part well yourself, it's going to be like this guy you met at the networking group. They don't have the skin in the game. They don't listen the same way. And this is your livelihood. This is everything. And if you don't learn this process yourself and you have someone else do it, how can you detect where maybe they're falling off the wagon, or maybe they aren't following a process 100% accurately, right? It'd be like doing the monthly accounting, the debits and credits. You could probably check my work because you already know how to do that really well. And the same goes with the front end process in our firms, which is the most important process because we can't do debits and credits unless we have the money coming in from our clients to do the work. We have to be paid first. And I think I loved how you shared it a second ago. You want people, what did you say? You want to buy my expertise and not my hours. And honestly, this is part of that expertise because there's a way to do it without like being a salesperson. Probably how that guy sounded. He probably sounded like your typical whatever you think of a salesperson. And most of us think of going to the used car lot. So, I mean, shoot, I still do it. All right. So Diana, that's beautiful. Is there any other things that you would want to share? Because I know we haven't talked about it yet, and I do want to touch on it because a lot of, single firm, small firm owners, or even bigger firms want to sell eventually. We want the exit.
I mean, that was part of my retirement plan.
Okay.
This was my retirement plan to get the business up and going and eventually have an opportunity to sell it. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So my focus has been to build that business, to build a solid client base. So when it's time, will be able to sell it or be able to, work with another firm to, as they acquire it, I'll stay on board for a couple years because I want my clients to stay on board. Because in most cases, especially with small firms, I know all my clients and they know me. And I have a personal relationship with probably 90% of them. So it's really important to me that they're taken care of.
Oh, 100%.
And it's done the right way.
Yeah. And then the transition's smoother too. But I think share with everyone or share with me, because we haven't even talked about this yet. When we sell a firm and we have to make it more valuable, right? I think that was the key word you said, and have a solid client base. But the value of what you're at now versus a year ago is significantly different. You're getting the ACHs up front. The errors are less than 15 days. The monthly revenue's up. And now when you go to sell, you're actually putting more money in your pocket for your retirement.
Absolutely. That's the whole plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I guess there are those small businesses that's not their end game, but it's definitely mine. And I think it's several people's.
I think it's several people's listening here today, 100%. So is there anything you'd want to share with coming up with your exit plan or strategy to sell the firm that you think would be really helpful for the listeners today?
Well, I actually had another firm that is in the business of selling accounting firms call me asking if I would be interested in some tax firm. And I said, no, I don't think so. But, by the way, how do you value them? And he said, it's totally gross revenue. It's based on they give a multiple of a gross revenue. So they don't really look at the bottom line. What they do, they want to make sure you're profitable, but it's all about gross revenue.
The multiple revenue.
Yeah. So getting a solid client base with solid reoccurring stream of revenue, that's what they want.
Yeah. And revenue is sales. First thing on a P&L. That I do know.
Well, and they want to make sure that the team that's in place is a good team. So as they absorb the firm, they're going to get good team members along with it.
Yeah. And team members is another hard subject and a hard topic to come across because sometimes it's really hard to find good team members. So if you have them, increasing sales can also put more money in the pockets of your good team members so they don't ever have to leave you. And what we call that when we talk about in sales class is putting on the golden handcuffs. You make it so good that it doesn't make sense for them to go anywhere. And then when you sell, you're that much more attractive because the team is such an important part of the firm.
And also, when I add new clients, I talk to my staff and I say, okay, here's who I'm talking to. Mm-hmm. I think you would be a good fit to handle this. What do you think? So when I work with my staff too, so they know they're getting another client. It'll be their client that they'll take care of too. So they end up having skin in the game and they want it to be a success too. So it's two ways. The staff are involved too in the process.
Yeah, 100%. Well, Diana, it was an honor to have you here and share your story. I just want to acknowledge you for your tenacity and the grit that you've put into this and not giving up and getting really, really, really comfortable, getting uncomfortable. And, doing that stuff that's not that easy, like thinking outside the box. This is not debits and credits, unfortunately. And this was more coming from the heart. And you've done it and you're continuing to do it. And we're doing refreshers now. So kudos to you and what you've accomplished. Is there anything else that you would love to leave the listeners with today or any other last words?
I think getting out of my comfort zone was probably one of the hardest things. And I always say that I'm about as creative as the piece of chalk, not the chalkboard. So that was really tough for me, but it really helped me grow personally and professionally. So thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome. And it's an honor to see your growth. And the day you sell the firm, we're going to have a celebration.
We will.
Yeah.
We will.
Yeah. Well, thank you for taking out the time. Our time is valuable. And, people buy your expertise. And I think everyone here listening has definitely gotten something out of today. and hopefully you've taken some notes and your expertise has been multiplied by a few hundred to thousands of people's ears. So, and I think sharing that, people they don't buy our expertise, or they buy our expertise, they don't buy our hours, is a good thing to walk away from today. If you didn't get anything else out of today, remember that. So thank you, Diana, for being here with us today on the Abundant Accountant podcast. It was an honor to have you. It's an honor to have you as a client. And hey, we're still going up. 6,500 in monthly revenue. Let's hit that 10,000 extra mark right there.
That's my goal for this year. Just for 2021, it's got to be an extra 10.
All right.
Awesome.
I'm here to make that happen with you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for the invitation.
So much goodness today with Diana. She's overcome a lot, but I think a few of the big takeaways that I have is, number one, getting really comfortable being uncomfortable. That was a huge shift for her. Number two, having people buy her expertise and not her hours. Massive, massive shift for her. And also having her eye at the end goal. Her end goal when we first spoke was to sell her firm. Even though at the time she wanted to close her firm because she just felt like she had a sinking ship. All her clients weren't paying her. The pandemic was, deep in the pandemic. So I think for those of you who are like Diana, you see the sales process as something terrifying, overwhelming, a part that you want to dodge completely. She now feels that it's her favorite part. She wished she could do the sales process 100% of the time and let someone else do the accounting and the onboarding. And I get this question a lot from some of you who I talk to. Michelle, I want to hire someone to do the sales in my firm. And what I recommend is that you have to take ownership of it first. And I'm actually dealing with this similar situation in my business. I want to do Facebook ads. I want to help more accountants just like you. And the podcast has been great and I get a lot of phone calls, but I want to grow it even more. And I've hired a lot of other people to do these ads for me and I have not gotten the results. So I said, okay, in 2021, I have to figure this out on my own. And then in the future, then I would be able to hire someone and be able to share, hey, this is what I would do different. Or, you know what, this person isn't a good fit. So before we can let the reins go on the most important part of your business, which is top line revenue, we have to take ownership and get a handle in it on your own. And before I can say, hey, Facebook person, I'm going to pay you $1,000 or $2,000 a month, plus spent, the money for advertising, which for all of you would be getting leads in the future. We can't let someone else do that until we've done it for ourselves if we have our own business. Because that's basically saying, hey, Facebook person, here's $3,000. Go to Vegas and let me know how you do. And I have no way to measure it to see if it was a good return on my investment. So for each of you, if you're really having a challenge and wrapping your head around the sales process like Diana was, then I invite you to go to theabundantcall.com, book a call. We will take a peek and look at where your accounting business is at right now, especially with your sales process, where you would like it to be, what's your exit, what's your end game goal. And if I feel you're a good fit, we can talk about that. And we can go through what's included in the 8-week sales mastery training that we spoke about today. So, don't take my word for it. I've got a bunch of testimonials on the website if you go to theabundantcall.com. And you've heard it straight from Diana today. So I look forward to talking to a few of you. Please make sure you own your own accounting firm and that you've at least been in business 2 years. So once again, theabundantcall.com. Thank you so much for being here and listening. I hope you've learned something that you can take away today, even if it's only that people buy your expertise and not your hours. That's the biggest thing that I heard from Diana today that I hope each of you really takes to heart. So thank you for being here, and I will see you in the next episode.